Hey everyone, here is my review of the Grey Knights Codex. Woo! I am going to be doing this video in 3 parts. One video is going to cover my review of the lore, another video will cover my review of the rules, and another video will cover my review of the Crusade stuff. This video is focused on the lore. Overall, I'm okay with the lore in this book. It's not bad. There's a lot of good stuff, a lot of classic Grey Knight stuff that's there, but it feels like something's missing from the book. And this is just broad strokes. There's a lot of stuff that I'll go into that I did really like about it, but broadly I feel like there could have been a lot more to it. Just to be very straightforward, the big things that I'm missing were present in the 8th edition Codex. Largely this book doesn't feel like an introduction to the Grey Knights so much as it feels like this is the current state of Grey Knights. Like it feels like an up-to-date, like here they are in the lore these days. Here's the things that the different characters are doing right now. Here's how everybody feels about Primaris and Cicatrix Maledictum stuff, which is cool. It's all good stuff and I'm glad to know it, but if I were a new player coming into the hobby and I picked up this book because everyone was like, this is about Grey Knights, you want to run Grey Knights, do this. I'd read through this and I wouldn't know what the hell they're talking about part of the way through. I don't know who Rabute Gilliman is. I don't know what the Cicatrix Maledictum is because it doesn't actually say anywhere in here. I know what the Cicatrix Maledictum is, but somebody just picking this up and this is their introduction to Warhammer 40,000, they don't know what they're talking about. This book, on the other hand, the 8th edition Codex, did a really good job of exactly breaking down what the Grey Knights are, explaining what their planet is, explaining where they're from, explaining their origins, and explaining their history. History is a key thing. There's one thing in the 8th edition Codex. Deeds of Legend. This is a timeline. What the Grey Knights have been up to for the last 10,000 years. This is awesome. This is a great little thing to kind of like get you up to date with the big points in Grey Knights history, and you can kind of like mentally place where your guys are, because not all of us play in the 41st millennium. Some of us have chosen to have our stories take place late in the 40th millennium or whatever. This book is, here are the Grey Knights. Have an introduction to the Grey Knights. This is their overall sort of like what they're about, what they do, where they're from, how they organize themselves. This one is, here's an update, what the Grey Knights are doing nowadays. And full disclosure, 8th edition was my first edition of Warhammer, so maybe this left out a lot of stuff from previous editions, and maybe previous codexes, even codices. The plural is codices. Maybe previous codices went into even more detail, and they left some stuff out of this. But coming back from this codex into the current codex, I was a little disappointed. In addition to the lack of the timeline, which again I think is very helpful, I would have liked a more detailed like breakdown, like organization. One thing this book has is big old pages that talk about each unit type before the data sheets. Like here's a whole page on chaplains and what their role in the Grey Knights is. Here's a whole page on purifier squads. That's interesting. Brother captains. Oh man, I liked that. I thought it was really cool. Get a lot more detail. I used to read through that whenever I'd like go into paint a squad, and it gave me a lot of inspiration. There's no such thing in here. There's briefly in like the actual like lore bits where they talk about them. For example, here's the only time it ever mentions interceptor squads in the entire book. This little paragraph down here. Many Grey Knight attacks are characterized by the flare of teleportation strikes. Their warriors specially fortified against the Immaterium's touch. Interceptor squads brave repeated warp transitions to rapidly redeploy and intone carefully measured rites that blah 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 blah. And then they're just there. That's it. That's all we talk about interceptor squads in here. In this book we talk about interceptor squads and it implies they got the teleporters from the Eldar, which is really, really fascinating. Interceptor squads. A lot of detail there. A lot more detail. Anyway, that's fine. Another thing this book has, and this is what I was noticing going through this, another thing this book has, chapter organization. Chapter organization. I wonder if you can tell from there. But it tells what each of the chapters, like the units they have at their command at any like given time. For example, it talks about 7th Brotherhood, my boys, the Exactors, 24 Scribes, 3 Astropaths, Brother Captain, Brotherhood Champion, 3 Terminator squads, 2 Interceptor squads, 3 Purgation squads, 2 Strike squads, 2 Dreadnoughts. Now, obviously I'm not beholden to any of that, but it was cool, and it let me know that, like, okay, if I want to build like a dreadnought-focused Brotherhood, I'm probably going to focus on the Sword Bearers. They've got so many vehicles and everything. Or maybe the Preservers. They have 5 dreadnoughts, 271 chapter equerries, 500 servitors. That gives me so many ideas for like terrain and like modeling options and stuff. 50 monotask servitors for the 4th Brotherhood. I really missed this. Would have liked it. Would have been cool. Again, it's another thing that feels like it should be in a book about the Grey Knights. It feels like you should have something that says, this is their organization. This is how they organize themselves. Admittedly, there's a lot more data sheets and a lot more rules and a big crusade chunk in this book. So they couldn't have just made the book bigger. They're the same size, these books. Anyway, I did a lot of comparing between the two of these, which maybe that wasn't the best for a review. Going through positives, the art is beautiful in here. There's a lot of new art that's really, really cool, or at least new to me. It might have existed before. Look at how beautiful this splash page is, and a lot of the like quotations on the side are really cool. They're not as evocative as they were in the last book. I don't know why, but again, that's probably nostalgia. There was a few new lore bits that I really appreciated in here. They talk about the Company of Gatherers in here, which wasn't an 8th edition book, and it might have been in previous lore, but I haven't found it where it was. The Gatherers, the guys who go out into the galaxy and find new Grey Knights to recruit, and like scour the black ships, or secretly go to like a Space Marine recruiting world, or wherever. I like the idea of that being a specialized like group of Grey Knights, like older Grey Knights who their job is to just like infiltrate high worlds and find psychers and bring them back to Titan. So there's a bit of new stuff in there that I do like. Talks about the Brotherhoods, because Brotherhoods are a big focus in this book, rules-wise. Turning the page, we get to a big old splash page about the Ward Makers, which, in my opinion, Voldis and Stern are the most boring parts of the like Grey Knight lore. They're just uninteresting. I don't know why, I just don't give a shit. Voldis in particular, a large part of that was because when I started in 8th edition, everyone was like, Voldis is the best and you should run him all the time, and I didn't want to because he was part of the 3rd Brotherhood and I didn't want to be the 3rd Brotherhood. Speaking of not wanting to be the 3rd Brotherhood, there's a whole double page on the Ward Makers. Yeah, I don't know, I didn't need a whole spread on the Ward Makers, especially since when you turn the page, you only get a blurb on each of the other Brotherhoods, and then the Ward Makers still get a spot here. I think the Ward Makers are just kind of like the Ultramarines of Grey Knights. But it's fine. They talk a bit about my boys, the 7th Brotherhood in here. Nothing new. That's really nothing new. Yeah, it's all stuff I've knew before. This was fun. It's a little short story about a Grey Knight squad purging and clearing a like infested what do you call it? Like a hydro plant on a hive world that a Nurgle demon has infested. That was fun. I enjoyed that. This art is red as hell. The sword cleaving through all the skulls. Absolutely love that. I did get to learn more about purifiers in here. This was cool. This is stuff I didn't know before. The fact that purifiers I knew they were guarding some ancient secret under the Fortress Monastery of Titan. This goes into a bit more detail about who has access to that and who doesn't, and really what the purifiers know, which is cool. And also goes into some more detail about all the demonic relics that they keep within the like bowels of the Chambers of Purity, and how all of them are like actually like demons contained in these weapons, and further exemplifies why it is important for Castellan Crow to carry the Black Blade of Antwer, because it's too dangerous to be left just in the Chambers of Purity down there. Hall of Champions, don't really learn a whole lot new there. This is fun. Warzone Manesque. It's another little short story, but again, it's very modern, if you get what I mean by that. It's very, this is what's currently happening, which as a longtime Grey Knights player, I appreciate, but if I were new and coming into Grey Knights, this wouldn't be super relevant. It just talks about how Grey Knights like raced a Primaris Torchbearer fleet out to some world and then killed everyone there because they were corrupt before the Primaris could arrive. Armory of Titan, we talk about bolt weapons, nemesis weapons, all that good stuff. We don't anywhere in this book, and this bugs me a little bit. So everybody knows how red dreadnoughts are. Dreadnoughts are the coolest. Dreadnought, like the Grey Knights alone, maybe not alone, I think White Scars are similar, but largely unique among Space Marines. Grey Knights prefer not to be interred into a dreadnought because their lives are filled with horror and hardship, and they want to be just laid to rest in the dead fields when they die. That is like the one selfish thing that Grey Knights request, is that when they are killed, they are put into eternal peaceful sleep in the dead fields. So it's a big deal it's a big deal turning one into a dreadnought, because he is not getting the rest that he has rightfully earned over the centuries or whatever of his service. And I really wish they'd mentioned that. It doesn't anywhere. It just talks about how they get put into their dreadnoughts and continue to serve the chapter, which is true. There's one cool story of it's either brother captain or a grandmaster being laid low and getting taken to the apothecaries, and he doesn't move for like weeks while he's recovering, and they know he's on the out, and they're just waiting, and everybody's just watching his body, and eventually the Grey Knight just nods once, and they take that as enough of consent to put him into a dreadnought. And they don't, it's another dour piece of Grey Knight's lore that I would have liked them to keep. Let's see, what are we doing? This page is about how secret the Grey Knights are. One thing they did change here, which I like, it says the exterminatus and the eradication of worlds where demons have touched is carried out by the Inquisition, not the Grey Knights. It specifies this. The Ordo Malleus is the one who goes around just like wiping the minds and putting everyone to the sword who has seen a demon, or even if no matter how stalwartly they fought. I like that they specify the Grey Knights are sometimes party to these purges as well, but the Ordo Malleus has resources and experience to conduct many by itself. So it kind of dissolves Grey Knights from that common meme of them just killing everybody they see. I'm always a big fan of putting more blame onto the Inquisition, because everybody hates the Inquisition. Talk a bit more about Rabute Gilliman, and that's it. That's all the lore. That's it. We're that far into the book and the lore stops, which is too bad, because the old book has about half the book is lore. But yeah, other than that, you go through and every data sheet has a nice little blurb about the unit, which I really appreciate. Just from a lore and art perspective, you get an idea of what the unit looks like. Apothecaries have the vital task of ensuring the physical purity of their battle brothers and healing those who are wounded. These arcane surgeons excise sorceress bullets and demon claw splinters from their battle brothers, purge psychic maladies using their empiric powers, or recover the gene seed of the dead. This is good for new players, having this next to it to show what this unit does and what they specialize in. But yeah, I genuinely wish there was more lore-wise in this book. Yeah, that's about it. If my lack of enthusiasm for the lore bothers anyone or disappoints you at all, worry not. I am very positive in my videos about the Crusade stuff and the rules especially. So stay tuned, and I'll have a bit more encouraging words following. And again, thank you for watching. I hope that you guys like this and you press the like button. Someday I'll be able to ask that without being an idiot about it.